Good afternoon. It is the 22nd of December, 2020, and I speak to you from Delhi. The news which is buzzing around the world is that there is a new form of the coronavirus. There is a significant mutation which has compelled the British Prime Minister to ask for a lockdown. And this lockdown may be extended till almost spring, if we are to believe the experts in England. It is a moot point, of course, whether the virus mutation is actually causing greater illness or increasing mortality. But without any evidence of increased mortality or more severe illness, the British government has gone in lockdown, and as of now, 40 countries have stopped exchanges with England. There is no transportation or no exchange of goods between England and the rest of Europe. India has also decided to stop flights from England. Now, we must keep in mind that this mutation of the virus, which I will elaborate upon very soon, has been going on for quite some time. But apart from that, the good news first is that the cases in India are rapidly falling, and also the deaths, you can see on the right side in blue, the deaths have also decreased in India. And in fact, the news from Delhi is quite good. The number of people who died 2 days ago were just 26 because of COVID-19. The number of positives has come down to barely 1.3%. That is, of the 90,000 odd who were tested day before, there were only 1,100 positive cases. And half of these tests were the regular PCR test, whereas half of them were the rapid antigen test. The take-home message is that the fallout from Diwali has now more or less declined and is declining very, very fast. The dip is more than 75%, and there is absolutely no need for a lockdown in Delhi or in other parts of India as things stand. Now, why is this? Why are the number of cases falling in Delhi? That I don't think is a mystery any longer. Common sense mandates that a lot of Delhi residents have become infected, and therefore the people with antibodies is quite high. The people with antibodies now possibly are around 40 to 50%. And apart from that, there are people also with T cells. Now, I will explain what are your antibodies and what are T cells. On the right of your screen would be the red globe. That is the B cell, and that is producing these blue Y-shaped antibodies which act against the virus. And apparently at least 25 to 30% people in Delhi have antibodies against the COVID-19 virus. Apart from this, we also have data, which I have spoken in my previous segments, that a large number of people have T cells, which have developed because of previous other coronavirus infections or because of the present pandemic. And the T cells are on your left. The T cells are of two kinds. One is that goes and checks your cells, and if it finds that your cell has been penetrated by a virus, then it ensures that the cell with the virus destroys itself. The cell commits suicide and that cell is gone. And the other way it acts is that it prompts the B cells to make more antibodies against the virus. And we also have what is called memory T cells, which is that the T cells remember a previous infection, and when there is a repeat infection, it very quickly ramps up production of antibodies and other T cells against the invading virus or pathogen. Now, this is an infected cell. The important thing here is that when a virus is infected, it has antigens, that is the virus itself within the cell. And these antigens then can program or activate the T cells. And the T cells then, as I've just mentioned, will activate your B cells, and the B cells will produce the antibodies against the virus. Apart from this, of course, the T cells themselves can go and destroy the virus inside a patient's cell. So people do have B cells and people also have T cells, and T cells, because they have memories, can in a future infection can ensure that B cells very quickly develop antibodies against the invading pathogen. Now, that is the reason why even today, the mortality in India is quite low. It is as low as 100 per million, whereas it is more than 1,000 per million in the United States, in the UK, in Spain, in Italy, or in France. Somehow the mortality is very high in the Western countries, and the death rate in Asia, and especially in India, is quite low. Not because of any spectacular medical services, but I think because, as I have said quite often, that the reasons are mainly two. One is that we have a much younger population. In fact, there are just about 5% people more than 65 years in this country. 45% of the population consists of people below the age of 20 or 25. So a large segment, a large proportion of Indians are young, so therefore they can handle this virus very well. And besides that, there is a very strong chance that we have greater immunity, either because of previous infections, because of previous corona, common cold infections, or because maybe we have the BCG vaccination. But I am still to come across a randomized trial with a BCG vaccination, which is concluding that the BCG vaccination worked against COVID-19. There was a trial being conducted in Melbourne. The results are still to come out. But anyway, the important message is that Indians by and large have a much lower mortality than those in the West. Now, as opposed to India, in England, the cases are increasing, no doubt about that, but the death rate is still very low. The death rate still is about, it was about less than 300 yesterday in the United Kingdom. And these are official figures provided by their official agencies. So despite the fact that there has been a second surge in England, the deaths have not increased proportionately. The death rates are low. And in fact, it seems that almost all hospitals in England are still not fully occupied. They may be 95% occupied, but they certainly are not more occupied than they were 3, 4, 5 years back. So on an average, the occupancy of patients in the UK and in the ICUs are more or less the same as they were 3 or 4 years back, if we take the average and compare that with the previous occupancy, with the previous hospitalizations. So the important thing to realize is that although deaths have not increased, especially not as much as was stated by their experts a few months back, that there would be almost 4,000 deaths per day by the first week of December, that certainly has not happened, because for the simple reason that was a blatantly misleading statement by the experts. Now, one of the experts is well known, that is Neil Ferguson, who is an epidemiologist in the Imperial College London. Now, he was a member of the SAGE, that is the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies to the Government. And it is he who ensured that England went into lockdown in March. And It is he who had provided some very, very grim figures. Now he resigned from SAGE, but now is again sort of a very important advisor to the British government, because he now is a member of the NERVTAG. The NERVTAG is a new group, which is the new emerging respiratory virus threat advisory group. Now, he apparently has said that England would have to be in lockdown at least until Easter because of the mutation, which they have seen. Now, this is from today's London Times, and according to Patrick Vallance, who is their chief scientific officer, the mutant virus strain is everywhere in England. Again, that is, by itself means nothing. The virus anyway is everywhere in England, as also in every part of the world. But whereas, when you say that a mutant virus is everywhere, that seems to be terrifying. But the fact is, we still do not know whether the mutant virus is more toxic than the regular COVID-19 virus. Now, the result is that, as I've said, 40 countries have blocked their borders. People are not being allowed to enter from England. Apart from people, even goods are not being permitted to be transferred across the English borders. And this means that very soon there will be a scarcity of goods in England, and possibly of essential goods also, apart from the fact that it would be impossible to get their vaccines, because the Pfizer vaccine, the messenger RNA vaccines, are being manufactured or stored in Belgium. So in order to come to England, they won't have trucks now. Maybe they will transport those vaccines by the Royal Air Force planes. That could be possible. Now, the remarkable thing is that despite the fact that the British Parliament, Mr. Boris Johnson, has publicly said that there is no evidence the variant causes more severe illness or higher mortality, but it does appear to be passed on significantly more easily. And this information he again got from NERVTAG, that is the new group which is advising him, which has gone on record as saying that the mutant virus is 70% more infective. But again, based on no data. This again is a modeling figure which has not been confirmed in the laboratory, on cultures, nor on people. Also, the British Prime Minister has conceded that the mutation in this virus does not mean that vaccination will become less effective. Now, the Russians apparently seem to be having much more common sense, as also the Indian government. The mayor of Moscow has committed that Christmas will be on in Moscow. There will be no blanket lockdown. There may be some restrictions, but Christmas goes on in Moscow, right? Now, where did this information come from for the British government? This information is actually a preprint, which is yet to be published in any medical journal. The preprint is from a lot of universities in the UK, from Oxford, from Cambridge, from Birmingham, from Glasgow, from Edinburgh. And that means almost all the important universities, as also the Imperial College. So the most important college is the Imperial College. So we find that the majority of the top universities in England have published this preprint, or rather prepared this preprint, in which they have highlighted the fact that the virus is mutating quite rapidly now. Now, the graph below shows the time scale and the mutations, and what we find is that as opposed to the light gray dots, the darker dots on the right and on the top mean that suddenly there have been more mutations in the COVID-19 virus, and this has been recognized and has been documented by gene sequencing by these universities. However, they fail to provide any solid evidence that this mutation will cause more sickness, more severe illness, or whether it will cause more deaths. The fact that deaths are more or less the same as they were earlier in England means that definitely, as one sees it with some common sense and with some clinical sense, the virus is not deadly. That is for sure. Now, this particular paper has said that the mutations have occurred quite rapidly, and the mutations are almost 20 in number. The important ones are in the spike protein. Now, the genes of this virus are the ORF, that is the open reading frame 1A, open reading frame 1B. And then the other genes are the spike protein, the envelope protein, the membrane protein, and the nucleic acid protein. The mutations have primarily occurred in the spike protein. The spike is, of course, as you all know, very important. It is the spike which allows the virus to penetrate one's cell. And if the spike has mutated or changed its form, then people are worried that there would be an alteration in the behavior of this virus, that it could be more infective or it could be more toxic. But as I've explained to you, it certainly is not more toxic. It may be more infective, and that also could be by chance. But these mutations have been given names. Two of them are the New York 501, which means that the amino acid N is converted to Y in the 501 position in the spike protein. The other one is pH 681. P at 681 position is converted to H. Now, the easy way to remember is New York 501, pH 681. And of course, this mutated virus has been given a name. One was VUI, that is the variant under investigation, 2020/12/1. And they have another name for it also, as per this preprint, that is B1.1.7. The third big mutation is a deletion at the 69th, 70th position. Deletion means that on the 69th and 70th position, the amino acids have disappeared. And this, they say, the combination of these, particularly of these three mutations, may have increased the infectivity of this virus, as per the advisors to the British government. Now, what I did was, I not only read the preprint very, very carefully, but I went through the references. There were 11 citations. The first one, of course, is very important. The first one is a single person case study, which has been published in the Cell in November. Now, the case that has been made by NervTag or the advisors to the British government is that in people who are immunocompromised, that is people who have cancers, blood cancers, or who have had a transplant done, let's say a kidney transplant or a heart transplant or a liver transplant, people who have HIV, people who are on corticosteroids, in short, people who have damped immunities. Such people would have a longer duration of infection by this virus. And in the process, because normally the virus is in the body for 10 days, 14 days, and then it gets defeated, it's out of your system. After 10 or 14 days, what you're picking up by the PCR test is just remnants of the dead gene of the dead virus. And beyond that, the virus is not infective. But in an immunocompromised person, what the authors had said of these British universities is that in people who are immunocompromised, the virus would stick around longer, could stick around for 2 months, for 3 months, and in the process, it has a greater chance for mutating. Now, this is a theory which has been presented in the preprint. And it is based on this case report, which was published. And I will go in detail about this case. This is a 71-year-old woman who is suffering from chronic lymphocytic leukemia. So this is a patient of leukemia. She has had this leukemia for 10 years. So obviously she's been on some sort of chemotherapy. Because of that, she was compromised as far as her immunity is concerned. The antibodies were damped. And because of this, she got infected with COVID-19, which was confirmed by a PCR test. This lady was given convalescent plasma on 2 occasions. However, in both times, the convalescent plasma, which contained antibodies against the COVID-19 virus, did not work. So both the transfusions did not work. Finally, after about 100 days, the virus disappeared. Now, another important thing is that this lady was asymptomatic throughout this infection. So we have an old woman, 71 years old, suffering from chronic lymphocytic leukemia, who gets infected and at least has the virus in her system for more than 100 days without developing any symptoms. Now, the authors of this paper do not talk about any mutation. All that they are suggesting is that people who have compromised immunity would harbor this virus for a longer time than the normal person. So, also, this is very important. The researchers of this case report then compared the activity of this virus in the lady with a competitive virus and found that the infectivity, or rather not the infectivity, but the kinetics, that is the replication, was almost identical with a standard COVID-19 virus. This was seen both in monkey cells and also, that is below, in human cells. So what we find is that there is a 71-year-old lady with the chronic lymphocytic leukemia who gets infected with the COVID-19 but remains asymptomatic, then gets okay spontaneously, and the virus inside her, despite the long duration of infection, despite any mutation which occurred, was no more infective or no more toxic than the regular virus. The other reference of the preprint is this case report of a 45-year-old man. This was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. This was published in December, a fortnight back. This man is suffering from what is called the anti-phospholipid syndrome. And this is an autoimmune disease. This 45-year-old gentleman is on complex therapy. He was on corticosteroids, on rituximab, which is a monoclonal antibody. He was also on cyclophosphamide and anticoagulants. What the researchers reported is that the virus remained in this man for more than 100 days. And apart from that, the man did receive remdesivir on 2 occasions. And despite the fact that he got remdesivir and the viral load decreased, the virus came back. But because he was suffering from hemorrhage in his lungs, he continued to be given corticosteroids. Ultimately, this person died. But nowhere do the authors suggest that there was a massive mutation in the virus, or whether that mutated virus has any ramifications in a clinical sense or in public health. The third citation, the third reference in the preprint is from Singapore, which was published in the Lancet. And this was published in August. And here we have a study which has almost 100 patients of confirmed COVID-19. 20 of these had a mutation. This mutation was a deletion of an amino acid in a certain position. And this was the 382 position of the COVID-19 virus. But what the authors found was that the patients with this mutation had less severe disease instead of more severe disease. No patient in these 20 odd patients with a mutation who had COVID-19 needed non-invasive ventilation or a ventilator, as opposed to almost 25% of the patients who did not have the mutation but required some sort of oxygen support. And this paper was again sort of validated by this recent paper published on December 7th in PLOS, which has shown that despite the fact that the deleted virus, that is the mutated virus with the 382 deletion, really has no different clinical ramifications or kinetics as opposed to the regular COVID-19 virus. So we have to keep in mind that the preprint on which the British government has based its current policy and created near chaos in all of Europe, as also the rest of the world, was based on a preprint which has no evidence that the virus is more dangerous or that the virus increases mortality. And above all, everyone knows that this mutated form of virus was spotted first in England in September, that is almost 3 months ago. And now we have a report in the Telegraph which says that this so-called supercharged COVID mutation was spotted in Brazil last spring. That means this mutated form has been going around for the last 8 months. So the timing becomes very suspect. You see, the British government notices a mutated virus and straight away clamps a lockdown. So now we have a situation wherein Christmas is here, just around the corner. Our dear Santa Claus is more or less quarantined at home. If he's caught outside, he would be arrested. And this is based on some reports that there is a new mutated form of a virus without any iota of evidence that there is an increased possibility by this virus of greater illness, or whether there is any increased mortality by this virus. And also there is absolutely no evidence that this mutated form of the virus would compromise vaccination. And above all, this mutated virus has been around for the past 7 or 8 months. Now with this, I will stop. I hope I have been able to clarify some of your doubts about this mutated virus. You don't have to worry about this mutated virus, despite the fact that I am sure that this particular mutated form is already in India, if not already present in the rest of the world, because, well, the horse has bolted and the virus was traveling from London to Delhi since at least September. So many hundreds of people have come in with this mutated form of the virus, but one doesn't have to worry very much. And with this, I will end. I hope you have liked this video. Please do subscribe, please do share, and do put in a comment. Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much.